But Trump, as we all know, did not do this to defend or protect Black people from crime. It's because DC is now a sundown town for MAGA, unless you got, big balls. And they are here as a white backlash, and they're using it as a distraction from the obvious, the Epstein files, from the genocide, you name it. And they're pinpointing cities that are under Black leadership, not just Democrat leadership, but let's be specific that, white supremacy is still the dominant doctrine here from the founding of this country to Project 2025. So here we are.
The program director and host over at We Act Radio, which is our Washington, D.C. affiliate. He's also the author of Nineveh, A Conflict Over Water. His website's Freeman for Congress, number 4, Freeman, Freeman, number 4, Congress.com, and weactradio.com. And on Twitter, it's We Act Radio, or at Black Lives Matter, or at Guerrilla Artist. Kymone, welcome back to the program. So Trump says that he's going to, or has maybe already by today, federalize the D.C. police force. And you've lived there, I believe, most of your life.
Yes.
What's the situation there?
Tom, I wish I could quote Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart right now, how they really feel about Trump, but I'm in good company.
There you go.
Having said that, I want people to understand that we had a lot of resistance, a lot of rallies against these efforts. Of course, even our D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwab said that, everything Trump does is unprecedented, unnecessary, and unlawful. And as such, there's an organization called freedcproject.org who has identified that the critical mass of resistance is 3.5% of the population. And as a D.C. delegate candidate in D.C., I got 22,000 votes in the last election, which is more than Trump got in his best night. And so 3.5% of D.C.'s population is 24,000. So there's we're knocking on the door of resistance here. But I want to make sure people understand that it's a mixed bag, Trump. I'm sorry to inform you of that. I just debated a Trump supporter yesterday. A lot of people can go back to our We Act Radio's Facebook or IG to catch that interview. But apparently, there are just as many people who are in support and are welcoming the additional police, additional military force, because let's be clear, the majority of people who are victim of crimes in Washington, D.C. are Black people. OK, but Trump, as we all know, did not do this to defend or protect Black people from crime. It's because D.C. is now a sundown town for MAGA, unless you got, big balls. And they are here as a white backlash, and they're using it as a distraction from the obvious, the Epstein files, from the genocide, you name it. And they're pinpointing cities that are under Black leadership, not just Democrat leadership, but let's be specific that, white supremacy is still the dominant doctrine here from the founding of this country to Project 2025. So here we are.
This is all too familiar to me. You wake up with a scratchy throat, congestion, runny nose, and cough. You know your body. You know you're getting sick, right? Well, what are your choices? Tough it out, get sick, and take time off work? Hope the doctor can see you this month? Wait 2 hours at urgent care and have people cough all over you? Or open your medical emergency kit like mine. I just match my symptoms to the doctor-recommended prescription, start at the right meds, and nip this thing in the bud right now. This is not a first aid kit. It comes with doctor-prescribed meds to treat dozens of common and serious medical issues. Strong antibiotics for infections of all types, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, bronchitis, and a lot more. Plus a doctor's easy guide so you'll know exactly what to take and when. No waiting to see the doctor, no waiting at the pharmacy. My meds are in my kit. Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit. You can get $35 off at urgentcarekit.com/Tom, T-H-O-M, when you check out. That's promo code Tom at urgentcarekit.com/Tom. Kymone, the deploying the military, these National Guard troops and Marines, and God only knows what all he's going to end up using, they're not trained in being police. I mean, you've got military police, but he's not deploying the MPs. They're trained in blowing things up and killing people. And it seems to me that if you are trying to reduce crime, if he wanted to reduce crime in D.C., what he'd do is, make sure that there was a larger allocation of money for the D.C. Police Department so they could hire a couple, 500 new officers or something like that, and that they would want to do something about inequality in Washington, D.C. I mean, inequality is the principal driver of crime. And that's something that is subject to, a whole lot of remedies. But instead of doing that, instead of doing policing, on, the stick or reducing poverty, the carrot, he's bringing out the troops. It looks, my take on this, Kymone, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it, is that the reason he's doing this is that he knows that at some point his march toward fascism is going to reach the point where people start to seriously resist. And they do so by showing up in the streets in large numbers. And he wants to have the military there to intimidate them so that they don't show up in the streets, or if they do, to create, the bloodbath or the fear of one, like, Kent State. What say you?
Well, I'm glad you addressed some of the root causes of crime and violence, Tom. And real quick, I want to run down and reinforce what you said. Poverty in D.C. is like 40%. Gandhi and Martin Luther King said that poverty itself is violence. Malnutrition, if an undeveloped mind is devoid of 4 key nutrients, they are more prone to violent behavior. The vast majority of our children who live in poverty in this nation's capital are in what we call food deserts. Lead exposure is not just a precursor for cognitive dysfunction, but also another cause for violent behavior. And in D.C., we just got RFK Stadium, a billionaire got billions of dollars of tax-free money, but D.C. Water won't replace all the lead pipes until 2037, 7 years after the stadium is completed. And then finally, illiteracy. D.C. has twice the national illiteracy rate. And none of these things have been addressed by anyone. But, let's be clear. Trump is flooding the city with military and federal police and underserved communities, but he didn't cut funds for public safety or Medicaid. Well, the big beautiful bill, or the big ugly bill, would do that, but it hasn't taken effect yet. But those cuts to Medicaid, housing, labor, and violence prevention were things that was done by our own neoliberal elected officials here in D.C. What Trump is responsible for, they talked about letting criminals go free when they go to court. Well, herein lies the problem, Tom. Unlike you, they can tell the truth and still be lying. All right. Yes, that has happened. But why has it happened? They throwing rocks and hiding their hand. There's a significant backlog of judicial appointments in D.C. Superior Court and D.C. Court of Appeals. And this backlog has led to delays in process and exacerbated by the fact that the Senate has refused to vote on several nominees, creating a deliberate short-staffed situation. And we just need to acknowledge that. There's a lot of things going on. I think Political Magazine said it best, that Trump 1.0 was the resistance. Trump 2.0 has been the acquiescence. And we have council members who have spent time at Mar-a-Lago. We have one council member is making overtures for a pardon because of his legal problems. We have a mayor who's completely capitulated, spent a quality time in Mar-a-Lago as well. And we need to acknowledge that this is the perfect storm. And as you well know, Tom, that the Posse Comitatus Act prevents the U.S. military forces being used against citizens of America on American soil. But everything this president has done, again, unprecedented, unnecessary, and unlawful. So we can't take any refuge in any of that.
Yeah, I was watching MSNBC this morning. I believe it was Morning Joe, and they had a guy on who was like, yeah, there's a lot of crime in D.C., and a lot of people don't feel safe walking around parts of D.C., so probably a lot of people are going to welcome the military. And I'm yelling at the TV, like, the military doesn't know how to police. And that has nothing to do with the root causes of this crime that is in D.C. or anywhere else in the United States or the world, for that matter. And it just blows my mind that anybody would think that the solution to crime is to bring in the army. I mean, it makes no sense, sir.
Exactly. And what we don't want to do is have a repeat of what we've seen in New York, a young man by the name of Khalid Browder, who was a teenager who was picked up unlawfully. He was in prison for 3 years for a crime he didn't commit. And because of his traumatic experience there, he ended up committing suicide. So we can't have the military scooping up kids, whether they're guilty or not, and leaving them in incarcerated situations as what the president's press conference has alluded to of doing, pretty much, lock them up and throwing away the key. None of this is new. Law and order spiel has been from Nixon to now. And I think everything you just said is correct, but unfortunately, it's kind of like the Walmart business model. It's a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
The nefarious business models that create lower prices and poor people are run for it. So if these people have been, again, most victims of violent crime in Washington D.C. are Black people, and some of them in their desperations are clinging to whatever they think is a sign of hope. And I think that this is the wrong way. And I think that we need to address the root causes of crime and violence, and we should stand in resistance to this authoritarian regime.
I'm with you. Kymone, do I have your right email or websites?
Yes, Freeman @4 Congress.com, and always weactradio.com. And we're proud to be the only station in Washington, D.C. that carries the good Thom Hartmann show. And I'm a proud graduate of Thom Hartmann University.
God bless you. You're the great Kymone Freeman, the program director and host over at We Act Radio in D.C. Thank you, Kymone.
Peace. Stay safe, stay strong, stay woke.